In the frozen northern waters of Europe, where the wind cuts like glass and the sea never truly rests, a small fleet of massive steel vessels begins its annual pilgrimage. Their destination, the icy depths of the Barents and Norwegian seas, home to one of the most sought-after treasures in the world, the king crab. Each winter, as temperatures plunge below -20 degrees, crews gather in ports across Norway, Iceland, and Russia. Here, under the pale glow of dock lights, they load hundreds of heavy steel cages onto their decks, equipment built to withstand the pressure and violence of the Arctic. These traps, called pots, are baited with herring or squid, each one prepared with precision, for even the smallest mistake could mean losing an entire haul to the sea. The fishermen who embark on these journeys are not thrill seekers. They are craftsmen, men shaped by generations of survival in a world where the line between life and death is as thin as a rope, slick with ice. Their reward lies far below the waves. Bright red paralithodes, chaticus, the giant king crab, and the smaller, but no less prized snow crab. Some of these creatures weigh more than 10 kilograms, their claws strong enough to shatter bone. Before departure, the crews check every hook line and winch. Hydraulics are tested, survival suits inspected, and communication systems recalibrated. In the Arctic, a broken cable or a jammed pulley can cost more than money, it can cost a life. As dawn breaks, the engines rumble to life. Clouds of vapor rise from the exhausts as the boats push slowly away from shore. Families wave from the dock, their faces half hidden under scarves. They know the danger that awaits and the silence of not knowing when or if their loved ones will return. Once beyond the fjords, the calm water turns treacherous. The wind grows sharper and waves begin to rise. For days, the ships travel northward, guided by GPS and radar, toward the designated fishing zones deep inside the Arctic Circle. There, under layers of ice and snow, the crabs wait hidden in the dark, rocky seafloor hundreds of meters below. When they reach the coordinates, the work begins. Steel cages, each weighing nearly 100 kilograms, are lowered one by one into the freezing water. The process is rhythmic and relentless. Attach the bait, secure the rope mark, the buoy release. Each line stretches hundreds of meters down, carrying with it a mixture of hope and danger. As the last pot sinks beneath the surface, the deck falls silent, except for the sound of waves slapping the hull. Now there is nothing to do but wait for the crabs to find their way inside, for the tides to shift, for the ocean to decide their fate. This waiting can last days, and during those days the crew faces some of the harshest conditions on Earth. Temperatures drop so low that breath turns to ice in seconds. The wind howls through the rigging like a living creature. Every surface becomes slick, every movement a risk. Inside the cabin, the air smells of salt, diesel, and coffee. Men sleep in shifts, boots never taken off, because at any moment the captain may call prepare to haul. When that moment comes, the deck erupts into motion. The hydraulic cranes begin their heavy roar, pulling the ropes from the Black Sea. One by one, the cages rise from the depths, dripping water and ice. The sound of metal scraping against metal echoes through the freezing air. And then the first glimpse flashes of red and orange through the tangled ropes. The catch is alive, crawling, clinging to the steel mesh. The men cheer, voices lost in the wind. The traps swing over the deck, bursting open to reveal a writhing mass of giant crabs. For a brief moment, exhaustion disappears. All the sleepless nights, the biting cold, the danger, they all fade into the background. What remains is pure adrenaline, the joy of survival, and the knowledge that they've pulled riches from one of the most unforgiving places on Earth. The traps come up one after another, each heavier than the last. Steam rises from the deck as seawater meets frozen metal. Every movement must be precise. There's no room for hesitation. The fishermen work in pairs, hauling the pots, unlocking the lids, and spilling the contents across the sorting table. What they reveal looks almost prehistoric, massive red king crabs, their shells gleaming under the deck lights, their claws wide and threatening. Some are so large that a single crab can fill the entire trap. Others, smaller but just as lively, scuttle across the icy floor. The air fills with the rhythmic clatter of shells, metal hooks, and shouts of coordination over the wind. Each crab is quickly examined. With gloved hands, the crew checks the size, gender, and condition. Mature males are kept. These are the prized catch. Females carrying eggs or crabs that haven't reached the legal size are carefully released back into the freezing water. This is not just regulation, it's a philosophy. Take what's ready, return what's growing. One fisherman mutters as he tosses a young crab back to the sea. These simple actions preserve a balance that has allowed this fishery to thrive for decades. Once sorted, the chosen crabs are transferred into live holding tanks, massive steel basins filled with chilled seawater that circulates constantly to mimic the natural ocean environment. The temperature inside stays just above zero, ensuring the crabs remain alive and unstressed. On some larger vessels, the process is even more advanced. Below deck, a specialized flash freezing system awaits. Here, select portions, usually the legs and claws, are cleaned, trimmed, and frozen within minutes at temperatures below 40 degrees C. The extreme cold seals in flavor, keeping the meat firm, sweet, and free from ice crystals. Inside these floating factories, every second counts. The longer a crab stays out of cold water, the more it risks losing quality. So the deck becomes a blur of movement, cranes, swinging hoses, spraying men shouting commands through the wind. As one pot is emptied, another is already rising from the depths. The cycle repeats endlessly, day and night, under a sky that rarely brightens during Arctic winter. For newcomers, the pace feels impossible. Gloves stiffen with ice, faces sting with salt and snow. And yet the crew pushes on, driven not by greed, but by instinct. In these waters, timing is survival. Deep in the engine room, the air hums with power. Pumps roar as they circulate seawater through the tanks. Sensors monitor oxygen levels, and digital thermometers flicker with data that helps keep the catch alive until the ship returns to port. Above deck, the men pause for only moments at a time. Someone passes around cups of steaming coffee, thick with sugar, just enough warmth to cut through the cold. Under the harsh yellow lights, their expressions are unreadable. Fatigue, focus, determination all blend into one. Each man knows his role, and each trusts the other completely. Because out here, teamwork is survival. The Arctic doesn't forgive mistakes, and the sea takes back anything done carelessly. By the end of the haul, the ship's tanks are nearly full. Thousands of crabs stacked carefully, their claws bound to prevent injury. The deck is washed clean, and the captain logs the coordinates of each recovered trap. For now, the sea is calm. The men retreat to the cabin, stripping off layers of soaked gear. Outside, snow falls silently onto the deck, covering the marks of their labor. Tomorrow they'll haul again, hundreds of traps waiting on the ocean floor, each one holding the promise of fortune or failure. But for tonight, there is peace. A rare and fragile moment in a life built on the edge of the world. After weeks on the open sea, the ships finally turn homeward. Their holds full, their crews weary but proud. The wind still bites the waves, still tower, but now each man carries a quiet sense of victory. Beneath their feet, thousands of live crabs shift slowly inside the tanks, waiting to begin the next leg of their journey. When the coastline finally appears on the horizon, it looks almost unreal. A line of faint orange lights shimmering through the Arctic mist. The harbor is ready. Forklifts, cranes, and insulated trucks stand by in silence, engines humming softly under the snow. As the vessel docks, steam rises from its hull. Men in thick jackets and gloves secure the ropes while others begin the offload. The deck comes alive again, hoses spraying, chains rattling, the deep mechanical rhythm of industry. Each crab is handled with care. Live ones are placed into aerated tanks for transport. Frozen batches sealed in vacuum-packed containers are transferred directly into refrigerated storage units. The temperature inside these facilities never rises above 25 degrees Celsius. It is here in the cold air of the north that nature's bounty meets human precision. At the nearby processing plants, another team takes over. The crabs are re-washed in clean seawater to remove any trace of sand or ice. Then, under strict inspection lights, workers trim the claws, Remove shells and grade each piece by weight and color. Only the finest cuts, the thick white meat from the king crab legs, and the sweet fibers of the snow crab are selected for premium export. The rest, still valuable, is used for canned meat soups and sauces. Nothing is wasted. Every package is labeled meticulously. Origin: Northern Barents Sea. Vessel: Aurora Nord. Date: February 6th. This traceability is not just marketing, it's law. Each label serves as a certificate of authenticity, proof of sustainable harvest, and a promise of quality to consumers thousands of kilometers away. Once packed, the products are loaded into refrigerated containers, mobile vaults of cold steel, bound for destinations across Europe, Asia, and North America. From Oslo to Tokyo, from Paris to New York, the same crimson shells will grace the tables of luxury restaurants and family kitchens alike. In one of Oslo's seafood auctions, buyers inspect crates of live king crab, the creature's claws moving slowly under misting sprays. The air smells of salt and cold metal. Each buyer bids with a nod, subtle, precise, and within minutes, hundreds of kilograms are sold. Some crabs are destined for steaming pots in Michelin-starred kitchens, others for sashimi counters, where their delicate meat will be sliced raw, translucent as pearl. Yet behind this moment of commerce lies months of work. The frozen dawns, the dangerous seas, the aching hands that pulled each crab from the deep. Back at the harbor, the fishermen finally rest. They clean the deck, coil the ropes, and check the traps for damage. In the mess cabin, a pot of coffee brews. Laughter returns to the air, a rare sound after so many days of silence. Hardest season in years, one man says, pouring his drink. The captain nods. But the sea was generous. Outside, the snow falls quietly, dusting the deck in white. The ship creaks softly against the pier, a steel giant finally at peace. The men know they will be home for only a short while. Repairs will be made, supplies restocked, and within weeks they'll return to the same icy waters, chasing the same red gold that waits below. For now, though, they allow themselves a moment of calm. In every scar, every cracked glove, every cup of steaming coffee, there is a silent pride, the pride of those who earn their living at the edge of the world. Behind every crate of gleaming red crab and every steaming pot in a restaurant, there exists a system invisible yet vital that keeps the industry alive without destroying the ocean it depends on. In Northern Europe, sustainability isn't just a policy, it's a culture. Countries like Norway, Iceland, and Russia have built one of the strictest fisheries management systems in the world. Every vessel that enters the Arctic crab grounds is licensed, tracked, and monitored. Quotas are assigned not by guesswork, but by decades of biological research, the careful measurement of what the ocean can give without losing balance. Before each season begins, scientists from marine institutes head out aboard research ships, dragging cameras and sensors across the seabed. They study crab populations, count juveniles, analyze growth rates, and measure shell thickness to determine maturity. The data is then shared with fishery councils that set exact limits for the coming season. How many traps may be dropped, how large each crab must be, and where the boats can operate. On every commercial ship, a digital logbook records the number of pots deployed, the location, and the catch weight. Some vessels even carry satellite transmitters that send real-time data back to monitoring centers on land. If a ship strays outside its designated zone or fails to report accurately, the system flags it instantly. For those who break the rules, the consequences are severe, heavy fines, license suspension, even blacklisting from future operations. But for those who comply, the reward is stability, a resource that renews itself year after year. In one Norwegian control center, giant screens display live maps of the Barents Sea. Colored dots mark the position of each fishing vessel moving slowly across the blue expanse. A marine biologist gestures to a cluster of dots. These are the active boats, she explains. They report every hour. We know exactly what's being caught, no surprises, no secrets. This transparency, rare in many industries, has become the cornerstone of Europe's crab fishery. It's what ensures that the king crab, once at risk of overexploitation, can now be harvested responsibly while maintaining a healthy wild population. Some vessels even participate in tagging programs. Before releasing undersized or female crabs, fishermen attach small numbered tags to their shells. Months later, if those crabs are recaptured, scientists can trace their movements, growth, and survival rates. Each tag becomes a tiny story, a data point that helps humanity understand life beneath the ice. Inside the fishing communities, this collaboration between science and tradition is seen not as an intrusion, but as a partnership. Fishermen, once wary of outsiders, now work side by side with researchers. They study the sea from above, one veteran says with a grin, and we study it from inside. Technology, too, plays a growing role. Modern crab vessels are equipped with sonar systems that scan the ocean floor in 3 dimensions, identifying promising zones without disturbing the habitat. Cameras attached to the cages record how crabs behave, how they approach bait, how long they stay, and which conditions attract the healthiest catch. The goal is simple to understand before taking. In recent years, these practices have turned Europe's crab industry into a model of sustainability admired worldwide. Other nations from Canada to South Korea have begun adopting similar systems, learning from the balance that the northern fleets have achieved. But for the fishermen, it's not about global recognition. It's about survival, theirs and the seas. They know that without careful management, the ocean that feeds them today could fall silent tomorrow. So even in the dead of winter, when the wind roars and the cold burns through layers of clothing, they follow the same code, measure, respect, and return. On deck, a young fisherman checks a released crab, watching it crawl slowly back into the black water. The old captain beside him nods approvingly. "That's how it's done," he says. "Let it live so it can meet us again." And as the trap disappears beneath the surface, swallowed by the Arctic depths, one can sense the deeper rhythm, the unspoken pact between humankind and the sea. When the final traps are hauled and the season comes to an end, silence slowly returns to the Arctic seas. The great ships that once battled the waves now lie anchored along the snowy coasts, their decks empty, their cranes still, their ropes coiled neatly in the cold. Inside the harbors of Tromsø, Murmansk, and Reykjavik, the air smells of salt and diesel. Fishermen unload the last crates, exchange firm handshakes, and head home, each carrying stories carved into their skin like invisible tattoos. Stories of storms survived, of nights without sleep, of hands frozen but unbroken. Some return to families waiting on the docks, children waving from behind layers of wool, wives holding thermoses of coffee. Others spend the first night ashore in quiet bars near the pier, sharing laughter and scars under dim lights. The sea may separate them for months, but it always brings them back to the same place, to one another. In the following weeks, the boats undergo repairs. Welders mend broken cages. Mechanics check engines, repaint hulls, and replace rusted chains. On land, the fishermen trade their heavy gear for tools, fixing, polishing, preparing, because they know the ocean will call again soon. For many of them, life on land feels almost strange. The solid ground sways beneath their feet as if their bodies still remember the rhythm of the sea. At night, they hear phantom waves in their sleep, the echo of engines deep in their bones. Yet there is pride in their weariness. They have conquered not the ocean, for no one ever truly can, but their own fear, their own limits. In northern villages, when winter loosens its grip, small community gatherings celebrate the end of the season. Bonfires light up the shores. Music drifts through the icy air. Locals feast on crab fresh and steaming, honoring the men who bring this gift from the deep. Each crack of a shell, each shared meal carries unspoken gratitude for the sea, for survival, for the courage that keeps this ancient trade alive. But the fishermen know the ocean is never tamed. Every season brings new dangers. Storms grow fiercer, ice forms earlier, and the weather grows more unpredictable. Climate change, once a distant warning, now shapes their reality, and yet they go on. Because for them, the sea is not an enemy, it is a teacher. It punishes arrogance but rewards respect. It takes lives, yes, but it also gives them meaning. In a small cabin overlooking the fjord, an old fisherman sits by the window, his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee. His son, still young, asks him why he keeps going back year after year. The old man smiles faintly. Because the sea doesn't remember names, he says. Only effort, only courage. Outside, the tide is rising again. The sun hangs low over the ice-blue horizon, casting long golden light across the water. In the distance, one ship prepares to leave the harbor, engines rumbling, crew assembling traps stacked high and gleaming with frost. The men move with the same quiet determination as those before them, bound not by glory, but by duty to feed their families, to honor their craft, to keep alive the bond between humankind and the ocean. As the vessel disappears into the Arctic mist, its wake rippling behind like a trail of silver, the narrator's voice fades into the wind. In these frozen waters, where courage meets cold and survival becomes an art, every crab pulled from the depths tells a story of labor, sacrifice, and respect. And though the sea may never truly belong to anyone, those who brave it have earned the right to call it home. The music swells, soft strings, the sound of wind, a heartbeat of waves against steel. The screen fades to black.